What if there were simple, practical things you could do to prepare your home for your upcoming astrological transits, creating the space to welcome auspicious transits and soften the impact of the more challenging ones? What if there were easy changes you could make to shift the balance of elements in your home to help balance the elemental makeup of your chart? And in honor of Magic Month here at Astrology Hub, today we're discussing the magic that can be made when we align the celestial realms and the physical realms. Today, we're joined by Amanda Gibby Peters to discuss the magic of Feng Shui and how astrology can enhance and complement this ancient system, helping you create a space that invites the energies you're most interested in calling into your life. Things like prosperity, harmony, purpose, and eliminating energies you're ready to move beyond. Things like anxiety, depression, overwhelm, and even withholding your light from the world. Amanda is the voice and founder of Simple Shui, a modern-day mission-driven, love-based practice of Feng Shui. She's been studying, learning, teaching, writing about, and sharing the wisdom of Shui for almost 20 years. She's also the host of the popular podcast Home Therapy and the author of Simple Shui for Every Day, 365 Ways to Feng Shui Your Life. Amanda, it is such an honor to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. I always love a good conversation about Feng Shui, and I know we're definitely in for one.
All right. Awesome. Okay. So let's start with the basics, assuming that our audience doesn't know what Feng Shui is. Or maybe, I know you've mentioned before, there's a lot of different definitions of Feng Shui. So what is it to you?
So I'd like to share a story that I think really illustrates the impact that your surroundings have. So this is a very watered down version of events, right? But it still gets the point across pretty brilliantly and beautifully. And that is thousands of years ago in ancient China, where Feng Shui originates. You had these emperors who employed these philosophers and sage thinkers, and they gave them this, let's say, assignment, and it was to study the relationship between the cosmos and the earth. And, I always joke at this point that this wasn't a weekend retreat. This wasn't a year-long apprenticeship. This was really a lifelong pursuit for knowledge and wisdom. And one of the observations that was made was that if a seed landed in the right spot meaning good soil, the right amount of water, the right amount of sun, not too much wind, that seed would grow and thrive. But if that same seed had landed somewhere where any of those ingredients were compromised or overwhelming, if the seed did grow, it would likely struggle. And so it's really important to think now to your own space. And if you have a yard and plants outside, or you're, the new plant person with all the plants inside, when yours start to show signs of distress, do you get mad at the plant? Do you blame the plant? Do you tell the plant it should do better? Or do you get curious about its environment, right? This idea of, does it need more sun, fertilizer, too much water, too little water? You figure out what it needs and then move it or give it those ingredients. And we are the same way. We are always under the influence of the spaces where we reside, live, work. And you can optimize those for your success, as well as have things around you that you probably have no idea that are actually contributing to some of the frustrations and challenges you're experiencing.
It reminds me a lot about something that we talk about here at Astrology Hub, which is having an idea of the energetic weather and then choosing how we want to dance with it. So it's the same kind of thing with our environment. It's like, what kind of an environment, what kind of a space, first of all, have we already created? And then that we want to create, and then actually moving into more of a conscious relationship with our space.
Yeah, I think it really is. When I first came to Feng Shui, like everyone, I was trying to learn this language. It was complicated. It was confusing. It felt, that there were so many contradictions. And I remember someone saying, it was a physicist saying, Feng Shui is the intelligent use of environmental metaphor. And I could sink my teeth into metaphor that I understood. And so I did this exercise where I would walk through, and it's now something I have my students do. I walk through my house, and it was, what is sort of like that first word, first impression of something I see, not running it through a filter, not trying to wrap a story or excuse around it, but just what was the first word, and it was like too small, scared to invest, beautiful, love color, And as you start to do that, you get an idea of what is working in your favor and where you are getting in your own way. Because those metaphors, they translate into probably the experiences you're having outside in the world. So I remember, I'll give a really good example. When I first did this, I had this really tiny chair. We had moved from a mountain town to Dallas. So we had this huge home suddenly, and all my furniture looked like dollhouse furniture. And I remember being in my office, and there was this small chair, and we'd had it forever, and I'd wanted to get rid of it, but we just didn't have the money to replace it. And I remember when I did this exercise, it dawned on me, oh, scared to invest, playing small, not willing to take up more space. And just like that, the chair was gone. And actually, there's a really good lesson in that too. When you create open space, you're sending a very strong signal to the universe or the cosmos, whatever you want to call it, that you have the ability to welcome in more and handle more.
Ooh, wow. That's an amazing example. And I can really see how walking through your house and naming the qualities of the different spaces, and then thinking about those words and seeing where you're doing that in other areas of life as well, in your career, in your relationships, whatever it is. Wow. Powerful. Okay, we're going to get to the astrological link here soon, because I know you perked up when we invited you to come to the show to bring Feng Shui and the ideas to an astrologically oriented audience. But before we do that one, let's talk a little bit about magic, because one of the things I noticed is that on your podcast, you use the word magic a lot. So what does it mean to you, and how do you see Feng Shui helping us facilitate practical magic in our lives?
Yeah, so I like the phrase practical magic, because I often say when people step into this conversation, right, when they understand what Feng Shui is, so they're not confused by what it isn't, and they start having this very deliberate and intentional conversation with their house, and they make adjustments or changes, or they do something again really intentionally, and there's a response from something outside their house, right, in their lives, it does feel like you're working with magic. And of course, then people are like pushing up their sleeves, tell me all the things to do. And really what it is it's that energy. It's that energy that you are always co-creating with. Another way that I like to describe Feng Shui, and it'll actually help people understand this magic, is when you break down the words Feng Shui, they mean wind, water. That's the literal translation. And if you think about it, wind is energy that you do not see, but you see its effects. Water is energy you see. So this is the conversation you're always having. The seen and the unseen are always in communication. And when you're working with your space, with what you see, you're informing and influencing all the energy that you don't see that then, crafts on your behalf.
Well, you're talking to an audience who is very interested in the energies that we don't see. The cosmic conversation and communication, the impact that the celestial spheres have on us here on Earth, and then also how we actually impact that conversation as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the astrology and how you see it tying into the things that you do with Feng Shui.
Well, so one of the concepts that I teach in my course is something called the Cosmic Trinity. And I usually introduce this because people get it in their head that if they have learned something about their home that is not favorable, right, they start to think that their house is responsible for everything that's going wrong in their lives. And so this Cosmic Trinity is it's the get out of jail for free card, because it really explains what's happening. So you have these three types of luck. I want you to imagine a pie graph, if you will, and you have three equal slices of pie. And one is human luck, one is earth luck, and one is heaven luck. Okay. So human luck is where we make decisions, where we have these intentions. It's that free will concept, right? All the things that we can choose to do. Earth luck is where you work with Feng Shui. That really speaks to that physicality around you. Okay. So I always like to point out here, when you're working with Feng Shui, you have, like, with your luck and then the earth luck, 66% working in your favor. That said, there is that heaven luck, and that heaven luck is really sort of what's written in the stars, if you will. It's the astrology. It's all the things that you don't control, but you can get what I'd like to call a forecast on, so that you know what's coming, so that, going back to that human luck, you can respond accordingly, because we don't get to choose necessarily what comes our way, but we do get to choose how we respond and how we show up. And so that astrology piece of it really ties into, like, understanding, okay, there are going to be times where, there's more turbulence, and you want to make sure that your home is more supportive and really taking care of you, nourishing you in the ways that you know how to nourish yourself. And then when things are looking really swell and you're like, oh my gosh, I have won the lottery, you can make sure that your house is optimized to receive and really be available to all of those opportunities and possibilities.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for examples of both of those things here in a sec. Before we do that, can you just clarify what you think the word luck means? Because I know that word, like, what is luck? Like, what is human luck? What is earth luck? What does it actually mean to you?
So I come from a very cerebral background. And so I tend to be very much like, okay, preparation, opportunity, luck, right? Like, I sort of love that definition. It's certainly not my own, but I think that it really blends well with a lot of definitions of luck that I've come across, which is, being open, being aware, taking advantage of the opportunities that show up, as much as being ready for the assignments when they knock, right? And I think when you are like, okay, I'm in for the wins, and I'm in to walk the fire, there's a lot of luck that comes out of just your presence, like showing up and doing the thing, because oftentimes whatever is considered lucky is on the other side of that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I love that definition. All right. Amanda, real quick, what's your top three, or your big three?
Capricorn, Sun, Pisces, Moon, Leo, rising.
Okay. Amanda, the two Capricorn suns. I love this. Okay. Give us some examples. So we're talking about astrological transits. You get the forecast. You understand what transits are coming your way. There's a transit. Let's start with the ones that feel really good. Something really positive is coming in your life, and you know it because you know how to read charts, or you've gotten a reading, and you want to prepare your space for this. Give us some ideas of how people would do that.
Well, so I have a student from several years ago who was kind of going through this phase of, like, I don't feel like I don't have any energy left. And she's like, what can I start doing to feel better? Just overall, like, reset, right? And so she started making changes, interestingly enough, in her office, and, tidying things up, getting things up off the floor, opening up her space a little more. And in the process of doing some of that, realized, oh my gosh, it's my job. It's my job that's, like, draining me dry. So she decided, okay, I've cleared some space. I'm going to put herself out there. And what was fantastic was, initially, and this is what will grab everyone, is the job that she picked. She got, a $45,000 raise. I think it was $45,000, $50,000 raise. It was a huge raise. I mean, significant. But the first day of that job, she had her new boss come to her and say, I want you to create a really clear, boundary between personal and professional, because if you have no personal life, your professional life, won't, like, it's not going to matter in the end. And when she sent me the note, I didn't even know any of this. When she sent me the note, I was like, that's what Feng Shui is. It is optimizing yourself for the thing that is so specific to you so that the universe can deliver it in a so specific to you way, right? She got the raise, she got the new job, all those things that we want. But it was the boss coming to her and saying, prioritize your personal life. That to me was the win.
Wow. Okay. So give us some tangibles, others, like things we can do so we know we're having something good come our way. What can we do in our space? And in addition to like clearing clutter and things like that.
It really is about, I would say, take care of your front door. Your front door is the mouth of chi, just like our mouths, where we take in nourishment, what we need to survive, right? Oxygen, food, water. Your front door matters. And if you don't use your front door, you come in through another door, simply starting to use your front door can be a real shift. Making sure that it feels inviting, right? Like, think about it. When you're calling things into your life, usually abundance, prosperity, opportunity, resource, better health, whatever it is, you want to greet it like it is a fancy guest coming to your house. So take care of your front door and your entry accordingly. This applies anywhere in your home. Creating open space signals, again, to the universe, I have room to receive. There's a landing spot here for something. When every single space is suffocating, and mind you, this isn't like just a clutter situation, and it's certainly not, I'm not advocating minimalism, but it's about saying, like, I have room to take in more. I have the ability to handle more. It's a very clear, like, sort of neon sign. Another thing that I like for people to do is to be mindful of where there are already opportunities built into their space. So most people have mirrors or a mirror in their house. You can take advantage of that by putting something in front of that mirror that suggests an outcome or an experience you want. So let's use wealth, because everyone's always, like, how do I find more wealth? What suggests wealth to you, right? I will often say fresh flowers, and immediately what people will kick back with is they're too expensive, they don't last long enough, there's not a special occasion. Listen to your excuses, because that is where you're holding out on yourself. And if you're not comfortable with small indulgences of wealth, the big stuff is never going to feel comfortable in your home. So make sure you're paying attention to the stories you're telling yourself. Buy those fresh flowers, put them in front of the mirror, and watch what starts rippling out in your life.
Okay, let's do the flip side now.
Okay.
You know that you're going to go into a turbulent or intense or, some of the more challenging transits that are really asking you to grow, really dig deep. Maybe you're having to let go of things in your life. How would you prepare a space for that kind of astrological forecast?
So one, I would go through my house and do an audit of the things that frustrate me that I have been putting off. Usually there are little frustrations that we tolerate, and then we become familiar and we think we're numb to them. And what I like to tell people is those little irritations are like water falling on a rock. Initially, it doesn't look like anything's happening, but over time it will erode into the rock. So I would take care of those, because you really, every time you address something, you're calling back or claiming back energy. So if you know you're going to go through it, resource or claim back as much of your energy as you can. Another thing I would do is make sure that you have some sort of touchstone, right? So for some people, this could be creating an altar. For other people, it could be having strict boundaries around their room, not bringing in the devices or not letting people just kind of throw the everyday busyness in there, but really acknowledging the sacred space so that you are able to fully recharge. In fact, if I knew I was about to go through something, my room would come down to sleep, sensuality, and, like stillness. Like anything else would be out, because I wouldn't want any of those competing distractions when I'm now the priority, right? Your bedroom is a good invitation to put yourself back at the top of your to-do list, right? And a lot of times when I go into rooms, all types of homes, by the way, all types of homes, I can tell how someone treats themselves by the way their room looks. This isn't a cost specific thing. This really comes down to, do they prioritize their space, or do they allow a lot of, infringement, other people's stuff, the work, the exercise, the kids stuff, the Amazon boxes, whatever it is. And if they do, what I remind them is if you don't prioritize yourself, no one else will. No one's ever going to pat you on the back for not prioritizing yourself, right? So that's a really great thing to do. And then I would say find a water ritual, taking baths, having like a little bit of a tea time. But water is the element for reflection, renewal, going deep. And it also helps us stay in the flow. And so it's not like a, sort of a one time and you're done. It's really about giving yourself, that access to that energy in a, again, deliberate and consistent way so that you can move through whatever is, coming your way.
Oh, so helpful, Amanda. I feel like my to-do list just got really long because I'm like, okay, I could fix this and I could fix that. Why do you think it's so hard for us to prioritize ourselves? What is that? What do you think that's an underlying symptom of?
I think a couple things, actually. I think I'll say for women specifically, and I know it doesn't just land on women, but a lot of my clients are women, so I'll speak from what I know. We are sort of praised for putting everyone else first, right? We get that good mom status, or, you're such a team player, whatever. It's we're greedy or self-absorbed. That's probably the better word for it. Self-absorbed if we take care of ourselves. And yet, always goes back to that example, put your mask on first and then put your kiddo's mask on. It really is that. So I think there's that. The other stumbling block is, I think, social media inundates us with what things should look like, and we get intimidated, and we don't do the one or two small things that actually start to create momentum, right? A lot of times people are like, well, I don't have the whole thing figured out. Okay, so what's the first choice? Like, what's one thing you really love? Because most of the time when you take that first step, the universe is going to step on the dance floor with you and give you all sorts of ideas, but you have to make the first move. So a lot of times I think we get sort of paralyzed by perfectionism. We get paralyzed by perfectionism, and we think, I can't execute anything until I know all the things. And so we hold out and then we never get to it.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for a couple examples of one or two small things that any of us can do just to start to move the momentum in the right direction. But before we do that, hey friend, I hope you're loving this podcast episode. I just wanted to jump in here really quick and let you know that we're in the last week of Magic Month here at Astrology Hub, which means you have just a few more days to take advantage of the 33% discounts on our astrological magic classes. We have classes designed to help you harness the power of the different phases of the moon to bring more of what you want into your life, how your natal moon can help and hinder your manifestation practices. You can also access two of our most popular classes from Gary Caton, one on planetary hours and magical elections to help you masterfully time your rituals. And for those of you tarot lovers, one on magic and the minor arcana and the decans in astrology. Finally, for those of you ready for a deep dive, you can learn from Dr. Jen Zart things like talisman making and creating your own astrologically infused oils, all for 33% off. And yes, Inner Circle members, you can stack your discounts for even more savings. Just go to astrologyhub.com/magic to get in on these special offers. And now back to the episode. Most of our audience is pretty familiar with their own charts, and most of them probably understand their elemental balance, right? So for example, I don't have a whole lot of water in my chart, and I just had a reading with a medical astrologer who said, and any water you do have isn't useful. Like, it's not useful water, right? So I'm sort of devoid of water. And one thing I've noticed is that I have made a conscious choice to live near water. And I live on Maui. I went to college at UC Santa Barbara. I lived in Manhattan, which is even surrounded by water, right? Are there things we can do in our homes to help us balance out an elemental balance that is either inherently in our chart, so we were born with it, or we know by transit that a lot of fire is coming in, so we might want to mitigate that? What kind of things can we do to work with elements?
Okay, so that's a bigger conversation. So I'm going to do a shameless plug really fast because it'll be a resource for people. I have a series of videos on my site called Shui Time, and there are 7 of them that are dedicated to the 5 elements. So in Feng Shui, we work with the 5 elements, and that's going to be helpful because what I'm about to say is probably going to have some people feeling like their brains just became a snow globe.
Okay.
So When you're working with the elements, there are all these different cycles that you can consider. There's like a creative cycle, a nourishing cycle, basically, where the elements feed each other. They basically give each other what they need, right? So we know that water feeds wood, right? For a plant to grow, it needs water. For fire to grow, we know it needs wood, right? For earth to exist, fire has to die down and create ash, right? Earth compresses and, creates iron or ore, which is metal. And then metal mineralizes our water, right? So that's the creative cycle. And if you reverse that, and I won't do that because I don't want to confuse people, but if you reverse that, what you realize is in that process, each element that's being nourished is also managing its predecessor. So that management keeps it from getting too big. Like there's not the chance for excess. And then there is a different controlling cycle where, let's say there's too much fire. Well, we could wait for it to die down, or we could just throw water on it, right? So there's a way to manage the elements much more powerfully, much more quickly. So when people are looking at sort of like an elemental situation, I would say work with the elements that are going to help you manage what you need. So if you feel like you need more fire, then working with wood is a really fabulous element to bring in because we know it feeds that fire. Likewise, if you feel like there's too much fire, find some water rituals. One of those misunderstandings about Feng Shui is everything has to be visual. Like you need to make changes in rooms and it has to be a very specific, like design-based project. There are lifestyle habits, there are rituals, there are space clearings, like energetic space clearings that you can work with that align with the elements. So you can really choose from this huge buffet of options to help manage, some of that turbulence if you need it.
I love it, Amanda. Okay. How about specific ailments? Like, what if someone is struggling with anxiety or depression or just overwhelmed? What if they're like paralyzed in their life and not knowing which direction to go? Can you give us some ideas of things we can do in our spaces to help alleviate things like that?
Yeah, so this is another like sort of a bigger conversation, but a lot of times anxiety is a very yang or yang environment, right? So a lot of times what I will look for is there a way of softening? Is there a way of slowing things down? Is there a way of quieting things? Can we add more water? Because water is often an element that is missing in homes where people experience a lot of anxiety, interestingly enough. Also, interestingly enough, in a lot of, sort of anxiety prone homes, I noticed that there will be either a lot of fire, an excess amount of fire, or an excess amount of metal. And what's actually interesting in that conversation is water is the element that manages both. It puts out fire and it pulls some of metal's energy, right? It's taking that mineral, right? So water is really great in terms of anxiety. Depression is the opposite in that it usually is a very yin environment. And it doesn't mean like clutter, although clutter can definitely be a contributor, but it means that things aren't changing. Things tend to get stagnant. People never move things around. There's not this refresh. There's not a lot of liveliness happening, right? And so one of the things that I will suggest is for depression, bring in a little bit more yang, bright movement, energy, kind of the party starters. And for the anxiety, it's like, okay, let's kind of settle in. So let's bring in a little bit more yin.
Okay. One more, because I mentioned it in the beginning and I want to make sure we cover it. And then we'll go to some of the examples, like places people can start. But what about people that are feeling like called to move in a direction in their life, but they're afraid, like they're withholding, they're having trouble accessing the courage to actually go in the direction of their dreams?
Yeah. Okay, so another great resource that we work with in Feng Shui is called the Bagua, which is it's like a tic-tac-toe board that you put over your home. Again, you can go to my site and it's all there. But so when people are wanting to branch out, they want courage, they're ready to try something new. The Family New Beginnings life area is a really great place to start. And the reason I bring that up is because it's a great opportunity to kind of help people understand how to work with your home. Again, we often think we have to bring things in when we're trying something new. And what I see more often than not is this is a moment to edit out what no longer matches or aligns or is asking you to settle or it's holding you to your past. It's not about getting rid of everything, but it's having that real clear awareness of what messaging you're surrounded by. So family new beginnings, it's associated with the East. It's spring energy. It's early morning. It's like that fresh start, right? So bird song, fresh plants, anything that brings in the energy of water to feed that wood energy. All of that is going to feel really good. And there is the opportunity for you to plant something that suggests what it is you're striving for. The other thing that I say to people too is, if I come into your house, can I tell what makes you tick? What is it that's important to you? Who are you about? I think we live very safe lives sometimes. And it's so funny. Our homes are these sacred spaces where we can be as expressive as we want. And so many people stay in these lines that trends and designers and social media, tells us to. So if I walk in and I don't know immediately like 3 things about you, there's where we're going to start.
Oh, whoa. I'm so curious now. I bet everybody is. It's like, what would she say if she walked into my house? It's such an interesting perspective. And I haven't thought about that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So if people are wanting to get started and they're wanting 1 or 2 things they could do today to just start to move in the direction of having more consciousness in the spaces that they occupy, what would you say?
Well, I've hit on 2 already. The front door, I cannot stress enough. And if it's as simple as just sweeping outside your front door to sort of clear out the old, welcome the new, it is a really powerful ritual. I have had podcast conversations with people all over the world. It is culturally something that is so woven in everywhere that I think when we do that, not only are we preparing the mouth of chi, but we are steeping ourselves in a wisdom that is so forever old, right? Like you are really gathering that energy around. So as simple as it sounds, it's a fantastic thing to do. I also love, on Instagram, I'll show different things of me working with my front door. I love, putting cinnamon oil on my front door to call in opportunity, prosperity. But this time of year, I actually also like, and especially with the new year around the corner, wiping down the door with like peppermint, because it really speaks to a fresh start. So those are 2 really simple things that you could do to just say, okay, I'm here, I'm ready, let's do this. I mentioned the kitchen, I think briefly, but it is considered the seat of health and wealth. So something that I notice in the kitchen a lot of times is people have all these different things out that they don't use. The fridge gets all the different magnets and clutter on it. The fridge can't remember the last time I cleaned that out. Those are all easy wins. And again, they are things that you notice and feel almost right away. So that's a great thing to push up your sleeves and get to doing. Cleaning your oven. I know it's not sexy. It doesn't sound like magic, but it is one of the best things that you can do. And then once you have that oven clean for 9 or 27 days, turn on each of your burners for just a minute, not even a whole minute, just turn them on. They represent resources, access to resource, right? So when you stoke that stove, it's lighting up, sparking opportunities to life. Hold that intention and then turn them off and go about your day. But you want to do it for 9 or 27 days. Those are really simple things people could start doing.
My stovetop has been broken for like almost a year. So, and I actually have someone coming to fix it next week, but that's an amazing symbolism that you just gave. Okay. 1 more thing, the Bagua. So our inner circle members probably perked up because we have been doing something called a treasure map every year around the Aries new moon. So March, April. And a lot of us have been using the Bagua checkerboard that you talked about to actually make sure that we're covering all aspects of life when we make this treasure map, which is basically a vision board for anybody who hasn't participated in this ritual with us every year. One of the other things we do is between January and March, because the astrological new year is the Aries new moon. It's not December. It's not January 1st. It's sometime, it's when spring starts.
Yes.
So basically between the winter solstice and the official beginning of spring, that's when we're clearing and making space for a new year. So tell us a little bit more about the Bagua
Yeah.
And have you used that in conjunction with vision boards in the past? Or have you used that to kind of like bring those things to life?
Yeah, I actually just a couple weeks ago taught a vision board workshop for a client of mine. She owns a couple salons, and we did a vision board, working with the Bagua, really helping people understand all of this wisdom, right? Like when you see that Bagua, you're seeing family and new beginnings, you're seeing wealth and prosperity, you're seeing fame and reputation. But there is so much more there. So here's something I would encourage everyone to do. I would say before you put anything down, and maybe you already do this, I would come up with an affirmation or a word that suggests what you want for that area of your life and put it down before you put all of the things over it. Because it's a way of really, it's clearing the space. It's laying down the intention and then letting everything else sort of become the visual affirmation of that.
Oh, I love that. Yes, we do definitely talk about the affirmations and also making sure that we're stating the affirmations in I am, like I am already, not I want, or I'm trying to, just I am blank. Okay, brilliant. Amanda, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. I literally am like, I can't wait to go to my front door. I had the honor of talking to Amanda a couple days ago. And so I got a sneak peek into this episode. And immediately I went to my front door and I was like, oh, there was like, we have a shoe rack. And on the shoe rack, there were several shoes that only had one pair. I was like, and then there was like a random notebook on it and my dog's harness for her walks. It was just like, this is a cluttered mess and I need to clear it out. Like, I love the essential oils and I love the sweeping. Any other things for that front door that really say like, this is a welcoming space?
Well, I mean, anything. So, this concept of curb appeal, which you think would, only be in the realtor's lane, it really is like data science backed, evidence of like we are subconsciously always in filter mode, right? And so when a space feels inviting, the thought we have is life is thriving there, right? Like actually, there's a lot of studies that show how people experience a home is decided when they first enter a home, like when they come up to the front door. Their entire impression is based on that first impression. And then when people do take care of their homes, like, say they're about to sell, they report a higher level of satisfaction in their life. So, that front door, anything like pretend you were going to sell your house, right? What would you do to your front door? You would probably give the front door a new coat of paint if it needed it. You'd probably fix any hardware. You'd replace the light bulbs. You'd shake out the doormat or probably buy a new one. You might plant some flowers. Like pathways to your front door, that's, the same as, any of those opportunities you're calling your way, finding their way to you easily. Light, being seen. Color, standing out. Fresh, anything, fresh opportunities, right? So all of these metaphors really start to, orchestrate in your favor. That doormat, it's a landing spot for chi, right? So all of these things are, you can really maestro a lot of good luck your way just by taking care of the front door.
Amanda, so helpful. Thank you so much. I hope you're all inspired by this. I also want to give a shout out to Anna Zaharia on our team, who is the one who introduced us. Amanda, she's been listening to your podcast for a really long time. She's like, I think Amanda would be perfect for Magic Month. This is like practical magic where we can actually work in a very tangible way with the energy of the universe, the energy all around. There's no real difference between the conversation we're having at Astrology Hub all the time and this conversation is just making it very tangible. And I love what you brought in here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love these conversations. I love when people get excited and they start loving their homes a little differently. So for me, it's a win.
All right. Awesome. And for people to find you, it's Home Therapy is the podcast.
It's House Therapy. House Therapy is the podcast. And then simpleshui.com is the site, and Amanda Gibby Peters on Instagram. So much information there. That is a good rabbit hole to go down.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm not on that yet. So I'm going there next. All right. Thank you, Amanda. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you so much for being here for this conversation. If you liked this style of like an astrologically adjacent or astrologically complementary conversation, if you like this, let us know in the comments so that we can invite more people like Amanda who are doing things that really complement all the different conversations we're already having here at Astrology Hub. And Amanda, again, thank you so much for the work that you do and for sharing your wisdom and your light and your beauty with us. So grateful. And thank you all for being a part of this community. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life, and we'll catch you on the next episode.